get it back to Laurne Turman if we can. So we talk about the 5 witnesses that the prosecution called up. Can you give us a breakdown of exactly the 5 that they did call up and what they brought to the stand, what they said?
In all, they found that all 3 officers, former officers.
Sure. So really, again, starting with Tyre Nichols' mother, that was the very first witness that they brought up to the stand. Also, Dr. Marco Ross was another person. He was the person who performed the autopsy. He gave a lot of medical insight as to how exactly that process had gone in terms of him just examining Tyre's body, some of the contusions and abrasions, as he called it, which are some of the initial hits and kicks and punches that had come and been revealed in that report, came to his head, his arms, all of his midsection, his legs as well. So he was one of the other medical examiners that came. They also brought Desmond Mills to the stand, who was another of the ex-Memphis police officers involved in this case. He took a plea deal and had to testify as part of that plea deal. And so he took the stand for the entire day, starting on Tuesday, the second day of the trial, and he specifically touched on how he regretted the decisions that he made that night, how he really didn't as much see other officers comply with those patterns and practice that the defense was trying so hard to prove, and ultimately the jury really aligned with in this case. But he also had talked about how each of the decisions that he made that night he really regretted. He also talked about some things that he did or didn't see when it pertained to some of the other officers as well, and about the decisions that they were making that night, from the initial traffic stop all the way to running to Ross and Rains kind of trying to pin Tyre down in some of those initial encounters with him, and all the way until EMTs and other medical personnel arrived at the scene. He talked about each and every one of those points and talked about the progression of how he saw it and his interactions with some of the other officers. They reviewed extensive body cam and sky cop footage to reveal some of what he was saying, and they asked him to stop every couple of seconds so he could analyze this part of the video, then re-stop it, analyze another part of the video, see how he was interacting with officers Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith. That was one of the more interesting points, just in terms of general police perspective, especially more current and relevant police perspective, of course, to that night. But I know another one of the surprises was that another officer who was involved in this incident, ex-officer Emmett Martin III, did not take the stand. He took the stand in the federal trial. That was certainly a shock. I know that the defense was trying to get him. I heard that there were some complications that went on with that, so of course we did not see him taking the stand. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, it was a little bit more sporadic in terms of the process. Of course, with only 5 witnesses, there is going to be a little bit more of expected, just a little bit more of less comprehensive of a look at things in comparison to the 17 witnesses that the defense had, in which they really had more of an order and direct process in the way that they took the character witnesses, then their medical personnel, then their law enforcement officers. It was really more of a fluid kind of motion with that and what we were seeing. But those were, of course, some of the highlights of what the prosecution provided, and a little bit more of some of the surprises of what we saw. Again, there was pretty immense shock with them only taking 5 witnesses and starting at the beginning of this trial with what could potentially be their strongest witness, who was Tyre's mother. Back to you, Pepper.